What up guys, Metal983 here bringing you another album review, and this time we've got a 2019 release that I'm really enjoying lately since its release, and it's grown to become one of my favourites in 2019. A little bit of a spoiler there, but what can you do? But yeah, this is what I'm going to be reviewing for you today. Yeah, this is the new album from the band Vulvodynia entitled Mob Justice. This is released under Lacerated Enemy Records. Now, if you aren't too familiar with Vulvodynia, they are a South African-based brutal deathcore band, and I first got introduced to this band back in 2014, I think it was, with the release of their debut album entitled Cognizant Castigation, I believe how it's pronounced. You know, I'm no good at pronunciation by now, but yeah, I first got introduced to that album, and I do own it on CD, and that album is absolutely fantastic. If you haven't heard it, make sure you do so. It's a very brutal style of, I would say it's where the style of slam brutal deathcore was starting to become its own thing and its own significant sound, if you ask me, and with the likes of Ingested and all that leading the charge, Vulvodynia wanted to join that market with their debut album. They did release an EP before that entitled Lord of Plagues, which I think I've only listened to about maybe twice or something like that. Yeah, I don't really go back to it, I can't even remember what it sounds like, so not really gonna give any comments on that release. But I did check out their EP that followed up from the debut album entitled Finis Onium Ignorantium, I believe how it's pronounced. That's a bit of a mouthful, I know that. But yeah, I checked out that release, and in all honesty, I think I was still in the hype stage of Cognizant Castigation, because when I first heard it, I was just like, meh, it's alright. But I think it was last year at some point I decided to check it out again, and I really enjoyed what I heard, so I put that straight on my iPhone, and it's become a regular listen on the occurrence. But yeah, and then we moved to 2016 with their massive sounding album entitled Psychosadistic Design, which made my top albums of that year. And if we were to put in perspective 2019 to 2016, that album is probably worked its way up the list, is because, quite frankly, I think that is an absolutely outstanding album. It's very ambitious, it's very diverse for brutal death metal, if you ask me personally, because I feel like it offers a lot more than just slams left, right and centre. It offers a lot for it, if you ask me. But it's an absolutely incredible album. Make sure you check it out, and I've got a video coming soon featuring that album, so keep an eye out for that. But then we have been waiting a new album from these guys for, what's this, 3 years now, and we did get a taster of this album, which was entitled Anthropophagus EP, which was released earlier this year, and that was only a 3-track EP, featured 2 songs that are on this album, which we'll talk about in a minute, but also featured another song, which is the title track of the EP, Anthropophagus. Yeah, I'll get there eventually. Which featured Dickie Allen and Kevin Muller, I believe it was, laying down some guest spots on that. And I really enjoyed that EP. It was a really sweet but brutal aspect to be leading up to this album, if you ask me. I really enjoyed that EP. I had it on repeat quite a lot leading up to this album's release. And then when the album dropped, I was so excited for this release, and I immediately stuck it on and embraced what I was in for. It's 10 tracks and 35 minutes in length, and if I'm not mistaken, out of the albums that I've had so far, this is their shortest one out of 3. I believe Cognizant Castigation was 45 minutes long, and Psychosadistic Design was 50 minutes long, so this one is a little bit of a shorter release, but it still doesn't hold up when it comes to brutality, if you ask me. I mean, the first songs that we heard from this album was the song that were on that EP entitled Mob Justice, and what was the song? Neope? Yeah, the 7-track on here, which Mob Justice is all Vulvodynia, but the 7th track on this album, which is a song that I mentioned, which I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce again, features Martin from Gutterlax on there, and I really enjoy that song, and definitely stands out on this album, if you ask me, especially with those gargly, gore grindy, porno grind sort of vocals on there that really break it up a little bit, but they're so rhythmic in the sound that it really sounds so infectiously catchy, if you ask me, and it made us really, really excited. And the title track, Mob Justice, when it was released, was absolutely fantastic, if you ask me. It was hard, I felt there was a bit more of a bit more diversity in this song. I felt like this could be like a different animal than what we've heard on Psychosadistic Design, because I think Psychosadistic Design was just a straight up brutal assault, whereas this one I feel offers a little bit more of a different kettle of fish than we've heard from Vulvodynia in the past. I think that it offers a little bit more influence from straight up deathcore and a bit of hardcore and beatdown elements in there thrown in for good measure. And I think that comes from the likes of the Gore Grind project that Duncan's involved with, the one with loads and loads of letters. We've got a little bit of a taste of like some like shouty sort of hardcore, you know, chanty sort of vocals in there, and I was kind of hoping that he would bring that forward on this album, in which he does so, and it really does add an overall different aspect to the Vulvodynia sound, and I feel like that's making it click with me a lot more. Is because I love a bit of diversity and experimentation in a band, especially when a band has done such an incredible album like Psychosadistic Design, but they are pushing the envelope a little bit more with their sound. And another thing that I'd like to point out about Vulvodynia's sound over the years leading up to this album is their production has definitely got more and more mature and more ferocious in her essence. I mean, like, if you listen to Cognizant Castigation and then fast forward to 2019's Mob Justice, you can hear definite maturity in their sound. It's becoming louder, more punchier, and it definitely shows a growth in the band sound in general as well. Now, as I said, this album's a bit shorter than the other ones, but I definitely feel that this one definitely hits more of a mark than Cognizant Castigation, if you ask me. I feel like that album kind of feels in some ways that it overstays a little bit of its welcome, just a little bit, whereas this one, definitely from beginning to end, for it being as short as it is, it packs a wallop from beginning to end. It's literally something that doesn't let up. I mean, it lets up a little bit on the sixth song, which is Echoes of the Motherland, which is more of a like instrumentally interlude sort of thing, which kind of breaks up the album, but then it goes back into the brutality and doesn't stop pummeling you from there on out, you know what I mean? It's hard and it's vicious, and it's something that you really, really need to hear, if you ask me. And now we'll go back to the start of the album with the intro track, Feast, which is a load of sounds of like vultures picking apart a carcass. It just sounds like very desolate. It sounds a very desolate sound going for it, and it really creates a really twisted atmosphere to start with. It kind of puts us in mind, if you take away the little horror sample of Psychosadistic Design, the intro to that, it kind of puts us in mind of that twistedness behind it. So they've really kept that going into this album, I'd say, and it sounds really, really good. And then, as I said, you flow into the second song, which is the title track, Mob Justice, which we talked about, which is an excellent, excellent song, if you ask me. It sets up the album perfectly of what you're going to be expecting throughout the course of this album. And then you flow into the third song, which is the one that I think I was looking forward to most hearing, which is the song Blood Diamond, which everyone knows the Blood Diamond trade that went on back in the day in Africa and stuff like that. So I'm not going to go into that because it's not a history lesson here. But I'm a big fan of the movie Blood Diamond, and I learned about it in history and stuff like that in school. But that song in general is absolutely fantastic. I love the lyrics, I love the approach to it, and the song itself sounds very vicious and very intense, and it feels like absolute atrocity, if you ask me, in the best possible way, if you ask me. So that is definitely one of my highlighted songs on this album. And then it doesn't let up then, because you flow into the fourth song, which is called Born into Filth, which this is the one where I feel like it definitely takes on board of more of a groove, hardcore sort of essence to it. So it's not really full-on slam, should we just say. And I think that kind of comes from the fact that it kind of feels like a bit of a duet vocally from Duncan and Alex Taylor of Malevolence, who lays down some guest vocals on this song. And I love Alex's vocals in general, but I love the combination of these. So with the more brutal aspect and the more hardcore aspect, it really brings together a nice cohesive unit, and it sounds absolutely punishing if you ask me. So if you want some, and that one's a pretty short song. I believe it's the shortest proper song on this album. It only clocks in at 2 minutes 50 seconds, but in that short space of time, it is an absolute banger. It's definitely something that'll break your neck when you're headbanging if you see these guys live. And then that flows into the fifth song, which is Famine, which is just an all-out brutal filth fest of assaults. Like, honestly, it's absolute devastation and destruction on that song. It's just pure filth and detestingness. It's just, ugh. It's just disgusting to hear. And that one definitely puts me in mind of the, like, twisted psychosadistic design feel. So I feel like they're embracing that a little bit more on that track. And then, as I said, we've talked about Echoes of the Motherland, which really breaks up the album very nicely, but it's still beautifully executed with the exceptional lead work that is on that little track there, so check that one out as well. I'm going to attempt to pronounce this again. Niobe? I bet you there's loads of people who fucked up the name of that song, but anyway, but yeah, that song, and I said the twistness of the Martin from Gutlax's vocals just really just breaks it up and makes it sound very unique sound, if you ask me. It just brings a new kettle of fish into the mixture, so that is a definite song that you need to hear. And then we'll flow into the 8th and 9th track, which I call Reclaim the Crown Part 1 and Part 2. And we're going to talk about Part 1 quickly, because it's just called The Burning Kingdom, which features one of my idols and heroes in metal, which is Trevor Strnad of the Black Dahlia Murder, which he's been appearing on quite a few different releases over the past couple of years, and I really love his diversity. I mean, he was on Filth's EP God Has a Plan, I think it was called, something daft like that, but yeah, and he was on Traitors as well, which I really like that factor. But to hear him on this track really sounds very unique, especially with Duncan's gutturals going left, right and centre and just sounding absolutely filthy. And then Trevor's vocals come in, which definitely take on board a bit of a blackened sort of vibe. It's really sick and twisted sounding, and then his lows are just very monstrous sounding. I idolise his vocals in general, so to hear the two vocal mammoths come together on this song is just something to behold, if you ask me. But it definitely has a bit more of a, I'd say this track definitely takes on board a more monolithic sort of atmosphere to it, and definitely the same can be said for Part 2 of this song, which is called Risen from Ash, but that one takes on board a little bit more of a heavier sort of vibe, I'd say, whereas the other one definitely takes a bit more atmosphere to it, if you ask me, but it is still brutal and barbaric, as Vulvodynia needs to be, if you ask me. And then the last song we're going to be talking about is Cultural Misogyny, which the conclusion of that song was definitely a highlight for me. Like, it sounds pummeling in general, but it's the repetitiveness and the whole forever fade that goes on as the track fades out. It just feels like it's just disappearing into the abyss, and it's just like dragging you along with it, like enticing you like a mermaid, you could say. But it's so fine sound. It just sounds so good, if you ask me. And I feel like that the song in general is heavy and barbaric. That's definitely a perfect closer to this album. It's just heavy and barbaric, and for slam, it's fucking heavy. The slams hit very fucking hard. It's very riffy sounding album, but it's the slams and the beatdowns that are withheld on this album definitely are something to behold, if you ask me. So if you want some sick brutal death metal, brutal deathcore, whatever you want to call it, or slam, fake slam, whatever, I don't care. This album is sick as fuck when it comes to the music, obviously. And then we're going to talk about the drum work's absolutely fantastic, and it's very relenting sound, but it's groovy and chunky sound, and I love the drum sound. This is definitely sound, that's one of the key elements of the evolution sound of Vulvodynia that I've really noticed, is the drum sound's just become a lot more clearer, and it just sounds more punishing, if you ask me. The slap bass elements also on this album is definitely something that I really enjoyed about this, and it definitely gave this record a bit more of a wow factor, but in general it just sounds really, really heavy on the chugs and the meatier parts on this album. And it's definitely something that's going to make you feel sick when you listen to it, or if it doesn't quite do that, it's going to make you feel like you need a wash, because it's absolutely filthy if you ask me. And as I said, Duncan's vocals, his vocals are improving with every release, if you ask me. Like, from his higher vocals to his lower vocals to his mid-range that he started to go for a bit more, and his gutturals, they never let up. They are just disgusting sounding. It proves why he's one of the best metal the best brutal death metal vocalists out there, if you ask me. He's just an absolute animal, and if you haven't heard some of his material, then this is definitely a good place to start, if you ask me, because this all round shows what Vulvodynia has become in the world of brutal death metal, if you ask me. They are an absolute force and an absolute giant of a band nowadays, and you just need to check them out. Yeah, so what more can I say? This is an absolutely fantastic album, definitely one of my highlights of 2019 so far. Definitely tracks I would recommend will be Mob Justice, Blood Diamond, Born into Filth, Niobe, however the fuck you pronounce that, Reclaim the Crown Part 1, The Burning Kingdom, and Cultural Misogyny. Check out all the songs. There'll be a link down below. Waiting to check out this album. It's on Slam Worldwide's YouTube channel, if I'm not mistaken, so I'll link that down there, as well as to Lacerated Enemy and Vulvodynia's links where you can pick up this album. So yeah, for an overall score though, I'm going to give this a solid 9 out of 10. A solid effort, and I think this is definitely going to be one of the highlights of 2019 so far. But yeah, I'll see you until the next video, and remember, stay metal, and I'll see you later.